Welcome into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, week number 2, segment number 2 with our two-hole hitter, Matt Josephs from ESPN Richmond at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter. Matt, welcome to week 2. Welcome to the Every Game on the Board podcast. How you feeling, bud?
Feeling good. I'm ready to overreact to week 1 because it seems like that's what we do pretty much all the time.
It really does. You got to kind of pump the brakes sometimes and, hey, find some winners on week 2, see what we got from week 1 and use it to our advantage. We got first game up, guys. If you're new to Every Game on the Board podcast, we're going down in rotation order, which this week it looks like also kickoff time order. So hopefully that stays the case here with the odds makers. But we got UAB and Navy, 345, 346, the rotation number. 3:30 Eastern is where we're starting this segment. And we are seeing Navy, the midshipmen, -3 touchdowns, -21 across the board, 59 being the total. We get the Blazers on the road against an option attack here. What are we thinking, UAB and Navy?
Well, those who've watched my podcast with you before know that I think Trent Dilfer's an idiot, and he has shown that in the games against the triple option. His team against Army and Navy, since he's been a coach, has gotten blasted in each of those games. You watched last week, Alabama State's quarterback had 4 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown and had almost 120 yards rushing. So I think Navy should be able to do whatever they want. They looked very good against VMI last week. They were able to get a bunch of quarterbacks some time. So that way, if Horvath goes down, then, there's some guys in the background who could certainly take over. Navy's team total is 40.5. I think I like the over there. I just think Navy can name their score. I just don't think Trent Dilfer will ever figure out how to slow down the triple option, and Navy runs it to perfection, it seems like.
All right, looking towards the midshipmen to start us off here. We got North Texas and Western Michigan up next. So we're seeing the Mean Green -10-point road favorites, 57 being the total. On the road, laying doubles against the MAC team. Any interest in North Texas and Western Michigan?
Yeah, I think we're selling Western Michigan short here. I mean, this is a Western Michigan team that's got a lot of talent offensively, and you just didn't see it because Michigan State played a really good game. But lost in that, Michigan State didn't score in the second half against Western Michigan. And I think this is a Broncos team that should be able to find some success at home offensively. Now, North Texas looked pretty good against an FCS team, but how much can we really take from that game because of who they played? Lamar's not exactly a good FCS team. So I think Western Michigan's live here at home. I think if you aren't necessarily confident in them to cover, maybe you look at their team total because I think they're going to score some points here. I know the quarterback situation is not necessarily the greatest, but they've got some good pieces at wide receiver and tight end. Jalen Buckley at running back. I think Western Michigan's live in this situation.
Next one up, 3:30 Eastern, Fresno State and Oregon State. We are seeing the Beavers -3 pretty much across the board, been bought up since the -2, 45.5 being the total. Fresno State, had that tough game against Kansas. Thought they were able to do some things, that might be productive as the season goes on. But, they're only catching 3 here on the road in Corvallis. What do you think in Fresno State and Oregon State?
I think we get a better effort from Oregon State here. They did not look very good against Cal. They've got some veteran players on offense that I think will perform better than they did last time. And I know Fresno State's played 2 games, but if you look, E.J. Warner has 0 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. You can continue to survive on your ground game, and they did that against Georgia Southern. But at some point, you're going to have to throw the ball with some success. I feel like Fresno State may not necessarily do that here. I think Oregon State's live. Certainly, I would probably consider the money line maybe a little bit more than the spread here because of the fact that I don't want to get kickers involved and stuff like that. So if you want to and you don't want to lay all that juice, maybe find another team that you could pair off with them and make a Oregon State money line with somebody else parlay.
So -3 point spread to -33 here as the next one up is Troy and Clemson. We are seeing the Tigers -32.5 at home, 52.5 being the total. They had a tough game against LSU. Now they're hosting the Troy Trojans here, Matt.
Yeah, I think this is Clemson's game all the way. I think Dabo is one of those guys that will want to take care of business. I'd look Clemson first half here. Last year they beat Appalachian State, who was decent last year, 66-20 at home. Troy has an FCS win. I don't think they're that good at all. And the one thing that worries me here about the full game spread is they play in Atlanta against Georgia Tech next week. That's why I probably would try and isolate the Tigers in the first half, maybe look at their first half team total, first half spread or whatever. But I think Dabo is going to have them ready and focused for this game, and I don't think Troy is going to be able to keep up.
We got 353, 354 up next. Rutgers hosting Miami O. I believe they played a MAC team last week as well, but Rutgers minus 15-point home favorites, 45 being the total. Miami O on the road catching points against Rutgers here, Matt.
Yeah, and you got a chance of storms in this game, so certainly watch the weather as we get closer. That's something I'm always looking at to make sure, because, with the lightning delays, the teams go into the locker rooms, and then you kind of throw out the different kind of handicaps because the guys are sitting there. Who's going to adjust better after the lightning delay? So just watch the weather as we get closer to this one. But Miami, Ohio's defense at least looked good against Wisconsin, losing 17-0. Now, the offense didn't do much. Daquan Finn did not look good at all. But I think this is a team that won't be intimidated going to Rutgers. Remember, last year they played a close game against Northwestern. They played a close game against Cincinnati. My worry here is Miami, Ohio last week. 4 of their 5 offensive line starters made their first starts. One of the other guy made his second career start. So this is a young offensive line going up against a Rutgers team that's got a pretty good defense, although it struggled at times with Parker Navarro against Ohio. I kind of like Miami, Ohio a little bit here in this situation. I also think this is a lower scoring game between these two teams.
Yeah, Parker Navarro, he's a pretty good quarterback there. Good for Ohio to keep him around another year. As we move down the list, Bowling Green and Cincinnati. We're seeing the Bearcats minus 21 and a hook at most shops, 46.5 being the total. Bowling Green in the Queen City here, Matt.
Tough game for Bowling Green. Obviously, Cincinnati coming off the really tough loss to Nebraska. I really like Cincinnati's defense this year. I think that they're going to be a team that's going to hold its own in a lot of their conference games. And you look at the Falcons. Remember, last year they lost by 7 at Penn State. They lost by 6 at Texas A&M. So they shouldn't be intimidated by this atmosphere. There's also a chance for rain in this game. That could even things up a little bit. Still, I don't know if Bowling Green's going to be able to score enough here. I think Cincinnati wins this game and flexes their muscle on defense once again.
Heading to Eugene, Oregon up next. Oklahoma State and Oregon. Man, the Ducks getting some respect. Minus, 4 touchdowns, more than 4 touchdowns. We were even seeing an offshore book going to 29 and a hook. 55.5 being the total. So we get the Cowboys on the road against the Ducks here, Matt.
Yeah, this is, I would not have called out Oregon for the NIL stuff if I was Coach Gundy, which he did earlier this week. He said that the non-conference schedules, the game should be played against teams with similar funding levels. And yet, of course, Oklahoma State played UT Martin last week, who I'm guessing doesn't make as much money as Oklahoma State does. The Cowboys without their starting quarterback for this game. Oregon looked really good. This is what Oregon should always do against FCS opponents. They certainly didn't do that last year. And Montana State's a good team. So, the fact that they were able to win 59-13 was very impressive here. I think, once again, Oregon's going to score a lot of points here. Oklahoma State cannot keep up. The one thing to consider here, conference opener next week at Northwestern for Oregon. So maybe the fourth quarter, they start taking starters out and stuff like that. So maybe you want to isolate the Ducks early in this game against the Cowboys.
Yeah, a little look ahead maybe late in this one as we get Texas State and UTSA up next. So in-state battle here in the Lone Star State. We are seeing UTSA, the Roadrunners, split line, minus 3.5, minus 4, depending where you're shopping. 65.5 being the total. Bobcats at Roadrunners here from the Alamo Dome.
Yeah, this is an interesting game because Texas State embarrassed UTSA last year. They beat them 49-10. It really wasn't even that close. And Texas State looked good against Eastern Michigan. Brad Jackson was very good, had 4 touchdown passes, all to Bo Sparks in that game. Now, granted, they are taking a step up, but UTSA's got a ton of injuries. Their outside linebacker, Cam Cooper, out for the season with a knee injury, and a redshirt sophomore that the coach says isn't even ready necessarily to take over is taking over. They also had 5 different defensive players go down with injuries in that last game against Texas A&M. So that's something to kind of watch out for as we get close to this one. So I'm very concerned about UTSA's defense in this sort of situation. I don't know if Texas State's going to go into UTSA and win this game. I might look at the over here. I think that the Bobcats are going to score a lot of points, and I certainly don't think their defense is going to slow down UTSA.
Next one up, we get the newcomer to FBS, Delaware and Colorado. We are seeing the Buffs off of their disappointing performance in week 1, minus 23.5. There is minus 24 out there as the home favorite. 50 and a hook being the total. So Delaware, tough road trip here, heading to Mile High to Boulder, Colorado. It is Colorado hosting Delaware.
Yeah, Delaware looked good. Of course, they're playing a lower level opponent, but this is a Delaware team that's usually very well coached. They are a team that has played decently in their FBS games when they were a member of the FCS. Now they are an FBS team. Colorado coming off the loss to Georgia Tech. Coach Prime saying that freshman quarterback Julian Lewis is going to make his debut. He's 17 years old. He's not going to start, but he's going to get some packages and stuff, it seems like. Also, an injury of note, wide receiver Omarion Miller for Colorado has not practiced since getting hurt in the Georgia Tech game. So that's one less offensive weapon here for Colorado. Also to consider here, they're playing at Houston on Friday night, conference opener with one less day to prepare. So the back door may slightly be open for Delaware if Colorado decides to stop, scoring and stop playing their starters in the fourth quarter of this one.
17 years old. What did he do? He left high school early or something?
I guess so, but 17 years old, he's one of the youngest quarterbacks ever to play quarterback in college football.
Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. Is Matt Josephs bringing the heat? ESPN Richmond at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter. A good follow there, guys. Matt, actually wanted to ask you a question before we get to the next game. Was talking to Jeff Nadeau in segment number 1 about it in the FCS. We're talking, Delaware, now FBS. But do you follow the FCS a lot? And do you bet FCS versus FCS or FCS versus FBS games a lot?
Yeah, I do. Obviously Richmond is in the FCS, William & Mary is in the FCS, VMI is in the FCS. So we definitely talk about all of those schools. And look, last week I did not have my best effort in the FCS FBS games. I gave a little bit too much credit to some of the FCS schools, and a lot of them were settling for field goals, which was unfortunate, instead of scoring touchdowns. But yeah, I think there's some value in those extra games. That's why I put a little bit more effort into them as well, to kind of see, because situational spots, look ahead spots, things like that. Some FCS teams are better than people think. So I do think there's some value in those extra games.
Yeah, there's kind of like a wide range I've noticed with these FCS teams. They're obviously not all created equal. Are you seeing any change over the last, year in terms of the NIL affecting these FCS teams more or less?
Somewhat. Richmond lost their kicker to Maryland. Maryland just paid him a little bit more than Richmond was able to. And so that was a loss. And, Richmond's coach talked a lot about losing a kid to Maryland, basically. But yeah, you're going to see less FCS players stay in FCS if they have the opportunity to go up to the FBS, but it goes the other way. Some kids that are in the FBS and can't find a spot, they go down to the FCS. And that's why some of those schools get a whole lot better, because of the infusion of the upper level talent.
Thanks for that, Matt. Getting back to the games here, we got heading to Camp Randall, Madison, Wisconsin, for the Wisconsin Badgers, laying 4 touchdowns, 28 and a half at some shops, 45 being the total. It's Middle Tennessee State at Wisconsin. Next game up here, Matt.
Yeah, massive disappointment for me. I have the over for Middle Tennessee's win total. I still think it could happen, but they got obliterated by Austin Peay in the FCS FBS game, 34-14. Vadiato, their quarterback, looked terrible. They put the backup in. He wasn't much better. Wisconsin didn't look great either last week offensively. I know Edwards got hurt. Billy Edwards Jr. got hurt, so Danny O'Neal will be their quarterback. So I expect a better effort from Wisconsin. They play at Alabama next week, so maybe in the second half they're a little bit more vanilla offensively, but I can't. Middle Tennessee is disappointing me so much here, and I just don't think they win the game, and I don't think they score very much here. That's why you're seeing the lower total.
Unique matchup up next with West Virginia at Ohio. So we are seeing a Power 4 team at a Group of 5 team. You normally don't see that, but either way, the Mountaineers -3.5 as the road favorite, 60 and a half being the total. Ohio, the MAC champions last year. They have a good quarterback in Parker Navarro. Tough trip here for the new head coach, Rich Rodriguez, and West Virginia. Short number, though, -3.5. Interesting one here. What are you thinking, West Virginia and Ohio?
Yeah, Ohio is an interesting team. I think this is much like Toledo last week. I think this will be everybody's favorite upset pick because of what Ohio did at Rutgers. My one question is, playing your second straight Power 4 opponent, can you handle the physicality of that sort of thing? West Virginia has a ton of new players. And as you said, this is an odd road trip here. There is rain in the forecast potentially, so that's something to certainly watch for as we get closer. I'm not necessarily going to fall into the trap of playing Ohio here. I think there's going to be some points scored. Rutgers scored 34. Ohio scored 31 in that game. I think Parker Navarro, once again, can find some success against this West Virginia defense, but I think Jaheim White is going to have a really good game for West Virginia, too. This one could be an over.
Matt, this is a good little subsector of our segment, because next one up, we go from West Virginia, Ohio to South Florida and Florida. So the Bulls making the trip from Tampa to Gainesville, not a long trip at all. What we're seeing, 56 and a half. The Florida Gators minus 17 and a half is the consensus number. There is a minus 17 and a minus 18 out there. Interesting one here, Matt. Both teams, a lot of people liking Florida this year. USF, one of the better surprises in week one. They looked really good. Their quarterback looked really good. Different kind of outcome here, though. Tough place to play in the swamp. What are we thinking? USF at Florida.
I think Florida, they looked really good against Long Island. DJ Lagway, how close to 100% is he? I've got to think he is getting there. He had the opportunity to rest a little bit in the second half against Long Island. They do have LSU on the road next. And so that's an important game for Florida. Once again, maybe does that affect things in the second half? I think this game's going to be a little closer. South Florida, normally I'd be a little bit worried about the win over Boise State, but they had a couple extra days to kind of celebrate the win and now get ready for Florida. I like Byron Brown. I think Byron Brown will keep his team in it here. I think South Florida's defense looked good against Boise. They're going to struggle a little bit against Florida. This one could also be an over. Normally I'd be worried about the 94 degrees, but both of these programs practice in this sort of weather, so I don't think the heat's going to affect either of them.
Yeah, hot there in the middle of Florida, swampy. That is one of the most correctly nicknamed stadiums out there in terms of the swamp. But South Florida at Florida. Next one up, Arkansas State at Arkansas. But actually, I think it's a quote unquote neutral site game. I believe in Little Rock. I'm not sure, Matt, but it is Arkansas minus 23 and a half, 62 and a half being the total. Arkansas State, Arkansas.
Yeah, it's the first time these two teams have ever played, which I find fascinating considering how close they've been, and they're actually going to play the game on a neutral field. I think it's War Memorial Stadium is what they're calling it. I had the opportunity to watch the Arkansas State game last week. They beat SEMO 42-24. Arkansas State's offense looked pretty good. They've got some decent running backs. They've got a pretty good quarterback in Rayner. And they've got the really good wide receiver Rucker as well. So I think Arkansas State can find some success. I think, Arkansas's defense is good. It's not great. They did give up 7 points to Alabama A&M. These FCS games, you really can't take a lot because I think the playbooks are very vanilla, especially in the second half. And, as you mentioned, some of these games are such mismatches that I feel like, you can't really take a lot out of it. Arkansas plays at Ole Miss next week. I think this one potentially is an over, too. I think there could be a lot of points scored here. I don't think Arkansas State's defense can slow down Taylon Green, but I also think Arkansas State can find some success offensively.
From the state of Arkansas, we're heading out on the middle of the Pacific here, out on the island for the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors hosting Sam Houston State. It is Hawaii minus 6.5 now, 48 and a half being the total. Do note the line move, one of the bigger ones for the week. Hawaii opened minus 9.5, now under 7. So some money coming in here on Sam Houston State. Hawaii's quarterback a little bit banged up. What are you thinking out on the island?
Yeah, Sam Houston State won this game 31-13 last year at home, and now they hit the road to the islands. Micah Alhado, the starting quarterback for Hawaii, was seen in a walking boot. Can I just say, as somebody who's invested in Hawaii's win total over, Timmy Chang is an idiot for playing his quarterback last week. Like, he clearly wasn't 100%. You were on the road. I know you're not supposed to think about this as a game you're supposed to win or not supposed to win, but like, this was the perfect situation to sit your quarterback, get him healthier, and then now you've got 3 straight at home and go, run off 3 straight wins, potentially start 4-1. But instead, he puts his quarterback out there. He gets hurt once again. Now he's in a walking boot. Now you might be starting your backup quarterback. I still think Hawaii wins. I like their defense a little bit in this situation. Sam Houston State's defense is brutal so far this season, but like, you're making it harder than you had to because your quarterback is not 100%. Now they've got their FCS game next week. I figure they're going to win that one. But like, you just didn't have to play your starting quarterback last week. And it was annoying to me because Arizona was going to win that game. You had the perfect opportunity to rest him. Here, I can't trust Sam Houston State's defense on the island. I think Hawaii's defense can keep them in it. This one's probably a no play for me, but certainly watch the quarterback status as we get closer because that certainly changes things for Hawaii.
Yeah, I'll even go one higher. Watching that game against Stanford when he originally got hurt, there at the end, it was almost like, man, if he was so, I guess, like not himself, being able to be mobile, which he does have in his arsenal, that I thought they should have went to the backup anyway. They didn't do anything on offense once he got hurt. So yeah, I'm with you. Great point in terms of last week having to play him. That was a head scratcher for sure. As we got next one up, Missouri State and Marshall. We're seeing the Thundering Herd minus 10-point home favorites, 55.5 being the total. Missouri State and Marshall here, Matt.
Good chance for rain in the forecast. You've got a Marshall team that was pretty much uncompetitive against Georgia. They played 3 different quarterbacks. They still don't know who their starting quarterback is going to be. Then you got a Missouri State team that gave up 73 to USC last time. I think, and I feel like Scott Van Pelt saying this, I feel like Missouri State's the play here, plus the points. Like Missouri State was a competent FCS team that's making the leap to FBS. Marshall's got all sorts of new players. Remember, Marshall's team basically went to Southern Miss and followed their head coach. So I feel like, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull the trigger on this. I still got to think about it. But right now, face value, I think Missouri State plus the points is the play here because I just feel like they're a very good coach team. They know a little bit more about their roster. And it's not like Marshall is your typical FBS team other than, scholarship numbers. I feel like Missouri State might be the play here. I just don't know if I can, take that bet once we get to kickoff on Saturday.
Yeah, Marshall is a kind of difficult handicap early this season as we got a battle for the state of North Carolina here. North Carolina at Charlotte. Do note that the Tar Heels are on the road here. Minus 13, anywhere from 12 and a hook to 13 and a hook, 49.5 being the total. So North Carolina at Charlotte.
Well, remember, North Carolina's never going to win again because they look so bad in week 1. Bill Belichick's going to be an embarrassment. Everything's going to be terrible in Chapel Hill. That's at least what the storyline was on Tuesday after they looked bad in that game. Now, it is interesting. This is the shortest of short weeks. They played Monday night against TCU. Now they have to travel, and granted, it's not a long travel, but they have to go on a Saturday and go play a Charlotte team that looked brutal against Appalachian State. Several storylines here. Connor Harrell, the starting quarterback for Charlotte, was a quarterback at UNC, so this game means a little bit more for him. Gio Lopez is injured. Who knows if he's going to play in this game coming up for North Carolina, so Johnson could come back in and play once again for North Carolina here. I really do want to play Charlotte. I do. But I just don't think I can. I feel like North Carolina is going to wake up. I feel like it's going to be a harder week of practice here. And I just don't think Charlotte can match up in the end. What I think might happen here is, maybe Charlotte scores an early touchdown. Maybe you get a shorter line on North Carolina live. I still think North Carolina wins. I still think they pull away in the fourth quarter. But maybe you wait until Charlotte gets a lead to bet North Carolina live on Saturday.
Makes sense, Matt. As we got next one up, Army and Kansas State. We are seeing Kansas State minus 17, minus 17.5, depending where you're shopping, 46.5 being the total. Two teams that really haven't looked good out the gate here, Matt, with Army going down to a pretty good FCS team in Tarleton State, and then Kansas State kind of struggling out the gate here. 17 and a hook, the ultimate equalizer. What are you thinking, Army and Kansas State?
I kind of like Army here. I kind of do. I mean, look, people will see the FCS loss and be like, oh, Tarleton State. Tarleton State's nationally ranked. Like, that's a good team. And Army, had some injuries. I mean, Dwayne Coleman got hurt briefly at quarterback. So, and it looks like he's going to play. Now, of course, trying to get injury reports out of, any of the armed forces is really difficult because they just basically don't tell anybody. And then you got a Kansas State team that obviously they played in Dublin. They lost. They played North Dakota. They were losing most of the game, needed a late touchdown to win. And then they start conference play. All right, well, no, they don't start. Their second conference game is on Friday at Arizona. So, it's a weird scheduling spot that either they're going to get it here or they're going to get it on Friday at Arizona. But, I think Army's potentially the play here. Army can shrink the game down. A couple of their long drives can shrink the game down a little bit here. So, I kind of like Army plus the points in this situation, even after an FCS loss.
We got 7 o'clock Eastern on the night slate here. Memphis and Georgia State. We are seeing the Memphis Tigers minus 13, minus 13.5, 57.5 being the total. Memphis at Georgia State from the ATL, Matt.
Memphis, interesting that they're playing back-to-back road Sunbelt games because they're playing at Troy next week. Memphis has lost a lot of players, but they're still really good. They are one of the leaders for the G5 playoff spot with, Tulane and JMU and Toledo maybe. Georgia State's interesting. TJ Finley transferred into the program. It was like last week. There's a chance we might see him at quarterback. Like, I don't think we will because I don't know how much of the offense he knows. But like that's kind of something to look out for in the next couple of weeks, that TJ Finley might be available for this team, and he's better than the former Penn State transfer Christian Valu, who was pretty bad last week against Ole Miss. Odd scheduling spot. Remember, this is a Georgia State team that beat Vanderbilt at home last year. So this is a Georgia State team that can certainly play up to their opponent. I don't know if they can necessarily in this situation. There's rain in the forecast potentially. This is a very interesting game to say the least. I don't know if I can necessarily find a play here, but if TJ Finley plays, that might make Georgia State live.
Matt, we got next one up, a little regional rivalry here, Tulane and South Alabama. Of course, New Orleans and Mobile, not far from each other. We are seeing the Green Wave -10 and a hook as the road favorite, 50.5 being the total. Just short trip here for Tulane, but they are laying doubles. Are you liking anything here, Tulane and South Alabama?
This one might be an under. Tulane's defense was really good against Northwestern. Preston Stone would not stop throwing the ball to the opposition. And then South Alabama, played pretty well against Morgan State. They won 38-21 in that game. Now, the interesting thing for Tulane is this is a sandwich spot because they just hosted Northwestern and they're hosting Duke next week. And Duke has their former quarterback, so they're going to be really excited for that game. So the coach this week has talked all about, it's not a trap game or anything like that. But like when you have to bring that up, it makes me wonder if that potentially is going to be the case here. So I lean to South Alabama here, but also think the under might come into play. The other thing is Jake Retzlaff will probably be better because with each week he gets to learn the playbook a little bit more with Tulane. Obviously coming in the middle of the offseason didn't exactly help him. So I think he's going to get better with Tulane. But I think South Alabama here spot-wise might be worth a look.
Just a couple games left. Every game on the board, wherever you're downloading your podcasts at, every game on the board. Hitting every single college football game for each week. Matt Josephs from ESPN Richmond at Midmajor Matt on Twitter. Give him a follow. He's a great follow there on social media, as we'll get a best bet as well. But 2 games left for this segment before we bring in Robbie Vino to finish off the card. We are heading to Toledo, Ohio for Western Kentucky and Toledo. 7 o'clock Eastern start here. We are seeing the Rockets -7. There is a 7 and a hook out there as the road favorite. Or as the home favorite, 59.5 being the total. It is the Hilltoppers at the Rockets from the Glass Bowl, Matt.
Yeah, Toledo's defense played really well last week. They get the late touchdown pass, and they helped the masses who were all – it seemed like everybody was on Toledo. That was the one thing that scared me, and I really shouldn't have been scared. I liked Toledo last week, and then everyone else was on them. I'm like, this could be the public disaster, and it certainly wasn't because they got the late touchdown. Maverick McIver has been tremendous for the Hilltoppers. 706 passing yards, 8 touchdowns so far. Granted, one of them was an FCS game, and I think he had 5 in the first half of that one. But I like this Western Kentucky offense. I mean, look, they've found a formula. Take an FCS offensive coordinator, take the offensive coordinator's quarterback, and watch the points fly. But my problem is, can their defense slow down Toledo? I think Toledo's offense is going to find a little bit more success because the Western Kentucky defense nowhere near as good as Kentucky's defense. We're going to see probably a lot of points in this one on both sides.
We got last game for the segment. We'll try to get a best bet out of Matt as well, as we got the a rivalry name game here. It's Houston and Rice, the Bayou Bucket Classic here, as both teams located in Houston, Texas. It is Houston at Rice, though. So Rice, the home team, and it's Houston laying 14 across the board. So 2 touchdown, quote unquote, road favorites. 39 being the total. Low total here, laying 2 touchdowns makes it a little tricky. What are you thinking, Houston and Rice?
Yeah, certainly. Rice is using this weird offense of sorts that's like a triple option almost. It has option qualities, but it's coming out of the shotgun. And, that was the thing that was interesting last week when you and I had Rice in Louisiana. One of the plays I hit on Saturday was the first quarter under in that game. Like, we had no idea how Rice's offense was going to look. We had no idea what was going on. Like, how well were they going to run it? And they certainly struggled. And their defense, which didn't have a lot of starters back, looked pretty good against the Louisiana team that will be a threat in the Sun Belt. Now you're going up against Houston, who has Colorado coming up on Friday, so short week there. And you have Willie Fritz, who's one of the best coaches in America. He used Rice's offense at Georgia Southern. So he's going to be very familiar with a lot of the concepts that Rice has here. certainly. So I think that takes away a little bit of the advantage here. Now, granted, look, the personnel is completely different, but the mobile quarterback is the same. Jenkins for Rice ran it pretty well at points last week. I never like laying doubles on the road here. Certainly, I'm not one of those guys who likes to do it, but I feel like Houston's got a little bit of the advantage here in terms of knowing what's going to come almost for Rice. I wonder how many Houston fans will be at this game. How much of a home field advantage will this contest be? Rice could still continue to kind of be a little bit of an enigma with regards to like figuring out what they're trying to do. But I just think Willie Fritz will have a game plan that will put his defense in a good situation on Saturday.
And Matt, I know you're up against it time-wise. Always appreciate the time. Great stuff. We'll get a best bet. But what you said there about Willie Fritz and his Georgia Southern offense, I thought that was pretty intriguing, pretty telling. What did you mean by that? I know they ran a form of the option offense, but is there like connections there?
Yeah, there's some connections. He has used that offense before. And so certainly it's one of those offenses that when you have a week to prepare, it's a little difficult to, but if you know what you're looking for, it's going to help things out. It's kind of like if you ran the triple option somewhere and then you move to a different school and you go up against the triple option, you kind of understand where it's coming from. I think that, Willie Fritz is going to have a really good game plan for this game.
Yeah, great point there, Matt. And that does it for this segment in terms of the games we're breaking down. Matt, do you have a best bet for the listeners?
Yeah, we're gonna go after the idiot Trent Dilfer. I'm taking Navy over 40.5 points. I just feel like Navy's gonna be able to do whatever they want. This is a Navy offense that when they put in Braxton Woodson, even their backup quarterback, he knows what he's doing. So this is gonna be one of those things where they find success in the first half. They're gonna find success in the second half. Navy over 40.5 points, as Trent Dilfer in 3 games so far against the triple option has not really done anything the last couple of years.
Okay, and it's 40 and a hook?
40.5. That's on DraftKings. Yep.
All right, Navy team total over 40.5 for mid-major Matt's best bet. Matt, anything else you want to throw out before we shut this down?
Basically, go Birds and tonight for the NFL. And I'll be very interested to see how JMU does tomorrow against Louisville. That's a fascinating game. This is a very good JMU team, but arguably this Louisville team is one of the best they've seen in a long time. So I'll be interested to see how the Dukes look tomorrow night on national TV.
Yeah, it's a fun one, Friday Night Lights. Do you have a pick in the Philly-Dallas game, laying the points? Or
Eagles by 1 million, of course. Come on now. I mean, let's be honest. But I actually think Dak will look decent tonight. I have some George Pickens props because I think he's kind of the sneaky one. Everyone's going to go to CeeDee Lamb, but he's going to have Quinyon Mitchell on him. I think George Pickens could have a huge game potentially in his first game as a member of Dallas.
Like it, Matt. He's Matt Josephs. Check him out, ESPN Richmond on Twitter. A great follow at Mid-Major Matt. Always bringing the heat here, every game on the board podcast. For Matt Josephs, I'm Drew Martin. Check it out. We'll be right back with Robbie Vino. Stay tuned. Every game on the board podcast.